Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that your value as a person has been reduced to a number. Your followers, your productivity, your income, your engagement. Not your character, not your relationships, not your ideas, just a number. And that number determines how people treat you, who listens to you, who hires you, who respects you. The strange thing is that this isn't a dystopian future. It's already happening. We live in the most measured society in human history. Our productivity is tracked, our calories are tracked, our followers are tracked, our engagement is tracked, our economies are measured by GDP. Companies live and die by quarterly growth. Even our attention has become a metric. Every part of life now comes with a number attached to it. And yet, strangely, reality has never felt more artificial. Influencers curate perfect lives that barely exist. Markets rise and fall based on numbers that often have little connection to real production. Even food, something once tied to land, culture, and survival, is now described simply as a product.
I love this product. It is so good. I'm going to do a tasting right now, but I'm going to...
Somewhere along the way, we stopped using numbers to understand reality and started mistaking numbers for reality itself. This is the failure of literalism. Imagine a restaurant that decides to measure its success using a single metric: how fast customers finish their meals. At first, this seems reasonable. Faster meals mean more customers means more revenue, so the restaurant begins optimizing for speed. Recipes are simplified, ingredients become cheaper, portions get smaller. Soon, the food arrives incredibly fast. The numbers look fantastic. Customers are finishing meals faster than ever. The metric says the restaurant is more successful than it has ever been. But something strange begins to happen. The food tastes worse. The experience feels rushed. People stop enjoying the meal. And eventually, customers stop coming. The restaurant optimized the metric, but destroyed the very thing the metric was supposed to measure. This problem actually has a name: Goodhart's Law. When a measure becomes a target, it stops being a good measure. And modern society is increasingly built on this exact mistake. Literalism is the belief that the metric fully represents the thing. Calories represent food, GDP represents prosperity, followers represent influence, productivity represents human value. But these numbers were never meant to be reality. They were just proxies, simplifications, tools we use to navigate complexity. Maps. And the first rule of any map is simple. The map is not the territory. A map simplifies the world so we can understand it. But if we begin to believe the map itself is the world, we lose sight of what the map was meant to represent. Modern systems depend on metrics. Companies optimize growth. Social media optimizes engagement. Markets optimize returns. Governments optimize economic output. Metrics allow us to organize systems so complex that billions of people can cooperate within them. But metrics contain a hidden flaw. Once the metric becomes the goal, people start optimizing the metric itself. Influencers chase engagement instead of authenticity. Companies chase quarterly growth instead of long-term stability. Platforms chase attention instead of truth. The numbers become the target, and the moment that happens, the number stops reflecting reality. This is why the language around us has quietly changed. Food becomes product. People become users. Workers become human capital. Communities become markets. The more complex our systems become, the more they rely on simplified labels. Literalism accepts those labels without question. But something disappears in the process. Food is not just calories. It is health. It is culture. It is agriculture, ecology, family. But when we reduce it to a product, the only remaining question becomes, how efficiently can it be produced? The metric replaces the meaning. The same thing happens to people. When systems only see metrics, workers become productivity units, citizens become voting blocks, soldiers become strategic assets, and users become data. Literalism reduces human beings to numbers because numbers are easier for systems to manage. But human beings were never meant to be understood through spreadsheets. And when a civilization begins to see its people primarily as a metric, something deeply important begins to erode. Today, we are entering a strange stage of civilization. The abstraction layer has grown so thick that numbers increasingly measure other numbers. Financial markets move trillions of dollars disconnected from physical production. Online reputation replaces real social trust. Digital engagement replaces real conversation. Algorithms decide what ideas spread. At a certain point, the system becomes self-referential. Numbers measuring numbers, measuring numbers. And when that happens, literalism begins to break. Once everything is reduced to metrics, people can become pieces. History has shown us this before. Territory becomes strategic zones. Populations become statistics. Casualties become acceptable losses. War becomes a game played on a map. Literalism makes this easier because it strips away the human reality behind those numbers. But societies that forget the meaning behind their metrics eventually collapse under their own abstractions. When people notice these problems, they often assume the solution must be massive. A new economic system, a new political order, a new global reform movement. But the truth is simpler. Literalism spreads through small everyday assumptions, judging people by follower counts, measuring success only through income, treating life as a productivity problem to optimize. The system is just millions of these assumptions multiplied together. And that means the counterforce begins in the smallest place possible. Individual decisions. Choosing truth over engagement. Choosing quality over efficiency. Choosing people over metrics. Choosing meaning over optimization. These choices are small, but they interrupt the machine. Culture rarely changes all at once. It spreads locally, through conversations, through habits, through small acts of judgment that refuse to reduce life to numbers. One honest conversation can shift someone else's perspective. One creator refusing to chase engagement can change an audience. One ethical decision can shape an entire workplace. Civilizations are not preserved by systems. They are preserved by habits. Literalism helped build the systems that run our world, but those systems only function if we forget the things that cannot be measured: trust, meaning, human dignity. Those things cannot be optimized. They can only be protected. And they survive in the smallest decisions we make every day, in how we treat people, in what we choose to value, and in whether we remember that the numbers were never the point. Reality was.